of St. Mark, the 13th chapter. Now Jesus said, "In those days, after that suffering, the sun shall be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars shall be falling from heaven, and the powers in the heavens shall be broken. Then they will see the Son of Man coming in clouds, with great power and glory. And he will send out the angels and gather his elect from the four winds, from the ends of the earth to the ends of the heavens." From the fig tree, learn its lesson. As soon as its branches become tender and put forth leaves, you know that summer is near. So also when you see these things taking place, you know that he is near at the very gates. Truly I say to you, this generation shall not pass away until all of these things have taken place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. Yet about that day or hour no one knows, neither the angels in heaven nor the Son, but only the Father. So beware and keep alert, for you do not know when the time shall come. 'Tis like a man going on a journey, when he leaves home and puts his servants in charge, each with his work, and commands the doorkeeper to be on the watch. Therefore I say to you, be awake, for you do not know when the master of the house shall come, in the evening, or at midnight, or at cockcrow, or at dawn. Or else you may find yourself asleep when he comes suddenly. What I say to you, I say to all, watch. The Gospel of the Lord. If I were to say to you, the end is near, what do you think just come like? The end is near. The end is near. You gotta shake your hands when you say that. The end is near. And do you imagine some wild-haired character with a sign walking down the street? The end is near. The end is near. It always foretells a certain brooding, doesn't it? The end is near. And when we say the end is near, what do you think? Makes you a little scared, doesn't it? Isn't that the idea? You're supposed to be a little afraid. The end is near. A little scared. The end is near, because usually when we say the end is near, what we're talking about is judgment. Here's the thing. For nearly 2,000 years now, Christians have been saying the end is near. Somebody in the church has been saying the end is near. The end is near. The end is near. It's always as if each time you have to say it a little louder because, well, it would appear that if the end was near, some of us missed it. And frequently the person who announced the coming of the end seemed to miss it, didn't they? That makes you a little worried. Well, should I take it seriously or shouldn't I? And we see this story crop up in today's gospel lesson, and maybe, you know, I think most of us have a little pang inside of us, a little worry. Well, maybe it is. But I don't know that Jesus is just speaking of a day of judgment. Because if we take a look at what he's saying, he's not just speaking of, you know, a moment, one moment, but if the end is near, that means something is coming. Something very specific is coming. That would mean, at least in church words, in church parlance, the way we talk, heaven is coming. Not only is the end with its judgment near, but heaven is coming. And it's pressing in itself on top of us. Heaven is coming. And if I say, now heaven is here, heaven is coming, what do you imagine now? Harps and angels? White robes? Sitting on a cloud for 10,000 years? Sitting on a cloud for 10,000 years. Yikes. Jesus has not just been talking about judgment. When this story shows up in the Gospel, it's the 13th chapter of the Gospel of St. Mark. That means 12 chapters of things have been going on before you got to this point. 12 chapters. And I would offer to you that in those 12 chapters, Jesus has been saying what he thinks the end looks like. If the end means heaven, if the end means being in God's world, if the end means the end of all things, what does that look like when it comes? For 12 chapters, he's been saying that. And nowhere in there is there anything about an angel or a harp or a cloud or anything like that. But he does offer some very, very specific things. Because when heaven comes, there will be enough for everybody to eat. When heaven comes, there will be reconciliation among people. When heaven comes, there will be a place for shelter for those who find themselves in the wilds of the world. When heaven comes, there's healing, wholeness, perfection. Right? This is what Jesus has been speaking of this whole time. When heaven comes, this is what it looks like. Imagine, and if you take away the harps and the angels and the cloud for a minute, you imagine the same thing, don't you? We imagine a room or a mansion even. We imagine a banquet. We imagine all of those things within our bodies that have been broken become healed. We imagine reconciliation with those people who on this side of the fullness of heaven we just can't stand. That's what heaven is. And Jesus has the audacity to say, not only is the end coming with its judgment, but that judgment ushers in this world where there's enough to eat. And there's a place to sleep. And there's reconciliation. And there's healing. And there's wholeness. And he has the audacity to say that that day is coming upon us now. Not just in the future, but now. In this time, in this place, in this era. Now it comes. You see, when the church engages in things such as feeding hungry people, helping those without homes to find shelter, bringing reconciliation to communities, and speaking of it within our families, what we're speaking of is the pressing in the fullness of heaven. That's what that's about. That's why we engage in things, because we believe that we've seen something, that Jesus has shown us something that's greater than what we see just in this world. We might not be able to heal every disease, but we can sit with those who are burdened by the problems of disease and allow them to know that they are not alone. We can be present with those who insist upon not finding reconciliation until the day comes that they do. You see, somehow we think that judgment is just about God sending us to the fires of hell, or maybe judgment is the putting away of all of these things within us that are broken and seeing them press in on top of our lives and welcoming them into our presence even in this time and in this place in this day. Jesus says that day is coming. That day is coming and is upon us now. And we see it coming all around us. See, there's this thing, it's called the church. And what are the concerns of the church? The concerns of the church are about showing heaven to the rest of the creation. The concerns of the church are about showing what heaven is about and what heaven is like and what it might mean to be in God's presence and what that looks like when it happens. And so the concerns of the church are about speaking Jesus' words and living his actions in this place. To be concerned about people who don't have enough. To be concerned about those who have no shelter. To be concerned and compassionate about those whose bodies and lives are broken. To speak and hope for reconciliation in a very, very broken world. But knowing that reconciliation comes first in our families, then in our neighborhoods, until that day when it spreads around the world. And that place which embodies that is a place like this. A place where people say in what they do and how they act and what they believe that the end is near. That the end is closer than we imagined it to be. And it's not just an end that speaks of judgment, that an end that speaks of a judgment that does away with the brokenness that we have created all around us. I would offer to you that the end is near. That the end presses in on us today. That the end is right around the corner. That it is truly a real end of things. And it is an end that we see coming to a close as we experience Jesus' presence around us. That the signs are around us. And he shows us what they look like. The end is near. You might be more wild-haired than you thought you were. The end